Welcome back to the Law of Relevancy. My name's Cordes Owen. I'm your host, and today we're joined by Christian Jack. He is the Sales Dojo. He has sold over $100 million in his relatively brief career. How did he do it? We're here to find out today. Christian, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much, Cords. Really appreciate it. Excited to be here.
Well, it seems like, Christian, in a relatively short amount of time, you have broken down sales to a science. Tell us a little bit about how you learned to be such an effective salesperson so quickly.
Man, it's not what you would expect. Some people it might be. So I got into sales after having been a music teacher, basically just not living the life that I wanted to live. I felt stuck. I felt like every day I was just kind of on a hamster wheel. And so I wanted to make a change. And I knew that I wanted to get into business of some kind, but I knew I didn't really have all of the skills to run my own business. I knew there's 100 different things you have to learn in order to run a business, from marketing to sales to whatever you're going to help people with, etc. And so I kind of just broke it down to, well, what's one part of running a business that will always be needed, will always get you paid, and I came upon sales, and I was not very good at it at first, but I knew that I wanted to make it work. So I basically just really, really sucked at it. I pissed off a lot of prospects. I got a lot of FUs from people. I got a lot of people ghosting me and never hearing back from them. And basically through that process, I realized how badly I sucked. And so then
Were you cold calling? Were you what industry are we talking about?
good question. So I got into high ticket. Was my first place that I really started cutting my teeth. So I was selling coaching, consulting, agency services, fitness programs, and anything like that. And it was all basically anywhere from $3,000 to say like 70K, I'd say, just to start out. Got into that, realized I sucked, and so then I just basically got some help. And once I got help, I got hooked on getting help, and got hooked on growing, and got hooked on sales, and just kept reinvesting and kept growing and kept reinvesting and kept growing. And that just kind of led me now to where I am today.
And so when you were having that moment where you're recognizing this, like, man, I'm not getting the traction that I really need to get in order to make this work for myself. Were there certain mentors? Was there content that you were drawn to that helped educate you on what you needed to be doing to make this successful?
Yeah, yeah. I went through the journey that I think a lot of people end up going through on their path to success. Is the first stop is the person that everybody's heard of. And so you kind of just learn from the guys who have the most marketing, who have kind of had the most successful businesses in terms of selling help with this, thing, selling their coaching. Started with them and learned a lot, but didn't quite have everything I felt like I needed. And so then I went to the next guy who kind of heard about after having gone through that program. And it was just kind of this incestuous cycle, if you will, of like this coach coached this person, and then that person also worked with this person, and then yeah, I worked with a ton of people. I've invested a little over $500,000 into my own just personal sales training over the past couple of years.
Well, that's a lot of money to invest over a couple of years. I mean, that's like an entire master's degree.
Yeah, yeah,
And
basically,
probably a lot more expensive. But if it's working, it's the best way to pay for itself.
for sure, for sure.
Well, let's talk about your technique. So, one of the things that I've heard you talk about is frontal cortex persuasion. What is that?
Well, it's kind of a funny story, but if you know anything about the frontal cortex, so the frontal cortex is this part of the brain that processes language, that solves problems. It does a lot of the kind of computing power, if you will, in the brain. And I'm a fairly analytical person. So getting into sales, I was always curious about, how does this work? Why does this question work so well? Why am I supposed to use this tonality at this part of the call versus this tonality at this part of the call? Why do I ask this question and then this question? All these sorts of things. And I was just trying to like piece it all together, because there's so much conflicting advice, and there are so many different uh, techniques taught by the 10,000 plus sales coaches that are out there in the world these days. And so I just felt kind of lost until I invested enough to finally put everything together. And so frontal cortex persuasion is the system that I've basically developed that puts all of that together. So all of that $500,000 plus of information and practice that I've gotten, I've put it all into this one system that kind of just takes the best pieces from everything and puts it all into this sort of a Frankenstein type sales process, if you will, that, instead of just this one sales coach who's really, really good at handling objections, but then is really terrible at the discovery part of the process. But there's this other coach that is really good at discovery, but completely sucks at handling objections. I've taken the best pieces of each one and essentially made this crazy amalgamation of everything that works darn near every time, darn near for any industry. I've had students in so many different industries, but it works pretty well. But then there's also this fun little, I don't know if it would be a red herring with frontal cortex persuasion, but it's actually kind of not really about the frontal cortex. So people who are analytical like me might already know what the frontal cortex is. And so they're attracted by this idea of this unique system that's based around the frontal cortex because it's this important part of the brain that you have to get past in order to make decisions. But then when a sale comes down to it, it's actually not about the frontal cortex at all. If anything, sales is about bypassing the frontal cortex and getting to other areas of the brain. So it's a little bit of like a fun play on words. It's got a story, but it goes pretty deep. So I'll just stop ranting there.
Yeah, I can I can tell you. I'll share a story. I remember about 12 years ago, I was in a conference and I was listening to this speaker, and they were talking about effective sales, and they had a pie diagram, and they showed like this half of the pie. This is like all the logic related to a sale. And, it's like, I mean, listening to you talk about like the analytical part or whatever, and I'm kind of connecting the two in my head, and I'm thinking, the actual purchase, it needs to make sense. It needs to be logical. It needs to satisfy the specifications. It needs to solve the problem or whatever.
Hmm.
And then at the top of it, he goes, now here's the other half of the sale. And in many ways, it's like he was saying it potentially is even more important. But these are the other things that go along with it. Like, for example, if you're selling advertising or to a big company or something like that, um, are you selling the fact that you're going to run the ads and do the creative and accomplish and check out? Of course, you're selling those things. Everybody has to do those things. But what you're really selling is whether or not that person's going to win a telly. And if they win that telly, what does it say about them? What does it say about what they've accomplished and what they've done in their career and what like how credible they are and
Hmm.
the ego component of it, and like how do you leverage some of those pieces? Is this a little bit about what you're talking about?
Yeah, yeah. There's this concept. If you've gone into any sort of like really deep self development um, circles, you may have heard of this guy named Neville Goddard. And I'm not originally that much of like a woo woo person. I'll tell you, back in the day when I first started getting into sales, I looked at all of like this level of consciousness and who you are is more important than what you say and all those things. I kind of looked at it and was a bit snarky about it, to be honest. I didn't really believe in it a ton. But as I started studying it more and as I was taught about it more, um, I realized there was definitely some truth to it. And so Neville Goddard has this saying that says, "The feeling of the wish fulfilled." And if you want to think about sales in the most simple context, like the way that you really make a sale happen is like just like you said, yes, making sure that the logic is covered and like this makes sense. It solves a problem that this person is coming to you with. However, where the real sale happens is allowing the prospect, the customer, to feel the feeling of their wish fulfilled. So I'll tell you a story. There's a guy that I was just speaking to earlier today, and I was on a call with him, and he really wants to actually get out of the sales industry. He makes very, very good money, more than most business owners by far, and he wants to get out of sales in order to run his own business because he wants to have more freedom and more scalability, and ultimately he wants to go and actually travel the world and just like collect Pokemon cards, and drive the cars that he wants to drive, and just hang out with his wife and just spend time together. And so the sale is really made when you are able to help this person feel the feeling of those wishes being fulfilled. And when you allow them to step into that version of themselves, they're going to make radically different decisions than the current version of them. Right? If you think about, another conversation I had, I think it was yesterday with one of the students. He wants to lose weight, and somebody who is overweight makes certain decisions. Right? They eat unhealthily. They probably don't go to the gym. They don't really get their steps in. They don't take care of the body as well as they should be. However, somebody who is in the shape of their life, the shape this guy wanted to be in, they eat healthy. They go to the gym. They take care of their body. And so, like, yes, we need to make sure that the program suits what they're looking for. But even more so, I want to allow this person to step out of their current situation, see themselves in their ideal situation that they want to be in. And when they're there, they have so much clarity and focus on what's needed in their life because they've basically gotten rid of all this emotional baggage. And now they can make a decision from an empowered state that can actually get them to where they want to go without any of that emotional baggage that's currently been holding them back for the past 2-3 years with every diet not working, trying all the supplements and all those sorts of things. So if you wanted to boil down sales and like just take one tactical nugget from all of this, it's to help the person feel the feeling of the wish fulfilled.
So in the case of the overweight client or the person that wants to change their life, as a salesperson, would you just start speaking to them and treating them in that way that they have already accomplished those things
Less
or
so
that
that
they're on
they
their way?
Yeah, it's about believing in the potential of this person to go and become that new person, right? Um, Oftentimes, when you're on sales conversations with people, people don't really have somebody in their life that really believes in them to the level that they need it in order to have the confidence to like go and take the risks that they need to take in their life. And they oftentimes don't even believe in themselves to that level. And so, um, it's it's a very ascended view of selling. It becomes less tactical as you get further and further down that road, but basically believing in this person on the other side of the screen, even though I don't know them, even though I've never met them really before this, I do believe that they can go and have whatever it is that they want in their life. And if they can, then why don't they have it right now? What has been holding them back from getting that? What sort of limiting beliefs? What mental blockers? All that sort of stuff then comes up in the sales conversation. And that's where the sale is made because then it becomes less about like, well, when are your coaching call times? And like, can I make this work? Or like, are the supplements going to be delivered on Monday or Wednesday? And they're now in this state of like this, what I call bulldog energy. Like, I'm going to do whatever it takes in order to get that result.
That's really interesting. I'm glad that you kind of explained that further. One of the things that you said during that explanation was, feeling a little snarky,
Yeah,
and you had to overcome that feeling of snarkiness. Was there like a breakthrough that you had that helped you get past that?
there was. There was. Uh, I had taken a bunch of sales coaching, um, probably probably around like 50 grand worth at that point. And I really wasn't making a ton more money than what I was before. I didn't really see a ton of results from it. I knew how to navigate a sales conversation better. I knew how to handle objections. I knew all of what I should be doing. Um, but it felt like the results just weren't quite there yet in terms of like my bank account, which is what I really cared about the most, to be honest,
That's a
at that
great
point.
KPI.
Yeah, exactly. And so I actually took a hard look at everything that I was doing. And I realized that I was investing into mentors who taught me to be better at the thing that I was already good at because I believed that it would, you know, widen the gap, if you will, and make my strengths even more strengthened. However, what I didn't realize is that if I was already strong at it, I was already closing the deal. So, like, I wasn't losing any money due to that. I was losing money due to the other things that I was weak at. And so, once I made that shift, I invested into a mentor that really helped me with that. And what the struggle was being firmer with prospects and being more of a leader on the sales call rather than somebody who just reduced sales resistance. That's all that I was focused on beforehand was like, how do I reduce sales resistance? How do I come across as curious? How do I be a friend to this person, etc. Versus this mentor really taught me to be the leader. And I think that's where something just clicked in my mind and finally shifted to the place where I started to fully understand and I started down the path of if these are the results that I'm getting from now being this new version of me, then maybe there's something more to that. And that's where it really opened up the whole world of going down what I call woo woo stuff and
Yeah.
more map of consciousness and who you are speaks louder than what you say for sure.
Well, I think empathy is a really big part of that. I mean, fully and truly understanding why somebody's even talking to you is a big deal because
Mhm.
if you don't have enough empathy and understanding why they're having the conversation or why they picked up the phone to do it, like you can't lead them.
Yep.
Because you don't understand where they're trying to go
Hmm.
or where they've come from. But by listening and by asking really good questions that can, dig a little deeper or help them tell their story or get it off their chest, like what it is that they're really truly deeply trying to accomplish or solve, then you can take them down the path. That's really, really interesting. I'm glad we're talking about all of this. Let's talk about the interplay of influence and persuasion. So, obviously, you're talking to somebody, you've established yourself as an influencer, or you have the credibility. Um, where does influence and persuasion where do they come together?
Um, I would say people get the wrong idea whenever we use the terms influence and persuasion, right? Because if you really look up the definition of influence um, in the dictionary, it's actually the ability or the capacity to have an effect on the character, the development, or the behaviors of someone or something. Um, and so it's this capacity to have an effect on. It's not as much of like an actual action verb, if you will. Whereas persuasion is a little bit different, right? Persuasion is the action of persuading someone uh, to believe or do something, or like a belief or set of beliefs. So if you really want to talk about the true definitions of persuasion and influence, I think that's where you can start to have some clarity as to what they're really about. Because usually people just kind of convolute the definitions based off of their own experiences, what other people say the definitions of them are, and they never actually take a hard look at what it means. So if persuasion is really the belief or set of beliefs, if you will, that lead to the action of persuading someone, then it's not about the actions that you take, it's about the beliefs that you have internally. And then influence is about con- the conveying, if you will, of the energy that comes from those values and those beliefs into the other person, right? So influence can happen even without any sort of actions directly towards the other person. Um, I'll give you an example of this. When when I was, I think, what was it, this past weekend, I was out at my little nieces and nephews' baseball game. And at the baseball game, tons of little kids, 7 to 10 years old, if you will. And there was one kid specifically that seemed to like just be really having a bad day and really having a tough time. And there's probably something going on in his life at home. Maybe he got spanked before a game. I don't know. But something was going on. His energy was low. And you could see just over the course of that game, his teammates didn't actually like go and talk to him to hype him up or anything, but they were just having a grand time. They were having a great time. They were having fun. They're out there playing the game, having fun with each other. And that one kid that was not having as much fun at the beginning slowly started shifting his energy to match the other one. And so there was never actually like this, pep talk, if you will, that happens. And so many people think they need to have that on a sales call. But naturally, that kid's energy started shifting just by the beliefs that these other kids have that they were just there to have fun. They were there to play a game. Whereas this kid, he came in with a little bit of different set of beliefs. Like, I have to come here and do this. Or, I was just wanting to play video games this morning. I had to come here, or something like that.
I've seen that happen. I've seen that happen many times with salespeople where, and the thing that I hear that they bring up, that it just seems like it's, the salesperson will say something like, "If I believe in the product, I can sell it." It really, what they're saying is if they can get excited about it, if they understand the product, if they understand how it works, they understand that it does work, then their energy changes to like a higher state, in a more persuasive state, because
Mhm.
like there's more confidence, there's more
Exactly.
enthusiasm about it. And that, just those two things can make the biggest difference in the world. But I hear people say that all the time. So are there certain like your sales strategies, are there certain industries, or there certain segments or whatnot that might be more primed for using your techniques?
It's a great question. Every sales trainer is probably going to tell you the same thing, that it just works everywhere. Um, I would say there are some subtle nuances and some subtle changes that need to be made if you're going to, sell knives to somebody, as an example. Like if you're a Cutco salesperson versus somebody who's selling like a fitness transformation, right? Like a fitness transformation is probably going to be a lot more of an emotional sale versus the knives. Like there's still emotions with it. It's just some subtle nuances. The structure stays the same. It's just like how deep the conversation goes that really changes more than anything else.
Well,
So,
let me ask you this. So let's say I'm an ambitious person and I am looking to make a change in my life. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to go down this sales route. I've heard those Cutco salespeople, they make, two, $300,000 a year and get to travel to all these different fairs and things like that, or whatever it is.
mhm,
Like, let's say I want to make this change and I want to start selling. How do I vet? How do I vet the things that I am selling? Because if I'm a salesperson and I want to sell, I want to just keep selling. If I get caught up in having to deliver what
mm,
it is that I sell, then I'm going to slow down. And if what I'm selling is not true or good, or like, if it doesn't have great 5-star reviews and things like that, like that's
mhm,
also going to create, mud
100%.
that's going in my tires. So how do I, if I'm an ambitious salesperson and I feel like I can sell anything, how do I vet the opportunities and figure out what it is that I want to sell?
Fantastic question. If I can pose a clarifying question to you, if you were a prospect, if you were a prospective customer of this business, how would you vet the business in order to know that you wanted to be a customer of them? It could be like reviews, it could be talking to past clients, it could be, anything really. I think a lot of people just get stuck in overanalyzation of things. The main thing I think that matters the most is just put yourself in the shoes of a potential customer and look at what they would want to know in order to buy something. Like, is this high quality? Is it going to last? What are other people saying about it? How's their support team? Are they communicative? If there's a problem, and it's just, I don't know that there's a specific system for it. It's a great question, but if you just break it down to what would the customer want to know, and you just go through that journey yourself, that will tell you everything you need.
So just maybe potentially go through the journey and see like how the presentation felt,
Mhm. I
how it
will
landed.
oftentimes just go through, if it's a coach or a consulting agency or anything like that, I'll just go through their funnel before I start working with them. I'll
Got
just
it.
book a call with them, see how their sales team does, see what they're about, look up their reviews on Trustpilot, on Triple B, and go through the process like I would be a customer.
Got it. Well, let's talk about that presentation itself a little bit.
Mhm.
So, um, obviously, putting together sales presentations is something that you're very good at. What is the proper way to put together a sales presentation? Like, how should a presentation be laid out or progress?
It depends, but short version is I like to uh, I like to break things down in ways that everybody can understand it. And so everybody's heard of the ABCs, right? Everybody understands A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, like the letters of the alphabet, right? Nothing too complicated. Now, you can use that in order to fully understand the different steps within a presentation or really any sale for the most part. And honestly, this even comes a little bit into marketing. Um, I know that you're definitely the marketing expert here. You know way more than I do, and so there's probably some uh, gross generalizations that are about to happen in terms of marketing.
That's all
But
right.
uh, I think about it in this way. So imagine yourself walking through the mall, right? Maybe you have a mall near where you are, and if you've ever walked through a mall, you see the stores on the sides. There's maybe some pop-ups in the middle. And I don't know if your mall is anything like mine, but basically when you walk through, everybody's trying to sell you something, right? Like whether it be the cologne, the perfume shop, whether it be, these fancy soaps that my wife always stops to buy that are like shaped in these weird ducks or whatever.
I love it when I'm having a creative block. I walk through the mall and I learn like everybody's got a promotion,
Yeah,
and
it's
it's a great
fantastic.
an idea starter.
100%. As you're walking through, everybody's selling things, and that's kind of where the state of the world is at today, especially the US, is that everybody's getting marketed to and sold to all of the time. From getting ads on social media to watching a movie on your favorite streaming platform and an ad pops up, whether it be, billboards on the side of the road, the radio as you're driving, like literally everywhere, constantly getting marketed to. And so the first step of any sale happening, and this works for presentations as well, because like say you're presenting to a boardroom or something, they've probably got a million meetings that day. Like what's different about this guy? They don't care about you, to be honest, with love. The first step is attention. All right, so you have to get people's attention before anything else can happen. Otherwise, you're just part of the noise. So the first step to great presentation and to any sale happening is really just getting somebody's attention and having their focus on you, even just for a second. Right? In a boardroom, this could be really, really simple or really, really fun. I've taken a fly swatter into a room before and just slammed it on the wall. I'm like, got it. And everybody's eyes go straight up from their pamphlets in front of them. They're like, what in the world just happened? Got their
Wow.
attention. Focuses on me. I'm like, oh, there's a fly on the wall. There wasn't a fly. If you didn't get it, there's no fly on the wall, but I had just got their attention. So then from there, the next stage is the bonding stage. So attention starts with the letter A. A. Now we're moving on to the letter B. Bonding stage. Bonding is really just about starting to create some sort of connection between the prospect and you, right? This could be, pointing out somebody's, watch in the boardroom, or it could be, when you're walking through the mall and like, maybe you're a cologne salesman, you like walk up and sniff somebody and kind of get their attention that way. You're like,
You share pretzel.
exactly. So many things that you can do there, but the bonding stage. The next one is the comprehension stage. So now we're on to the letter C. This is all about just understanding like what it is that you do and what you have to offer. Usually, people aren't going to buy something if they don't get it, right? If you're selling some sort of Shopify services as opposed to Amazon FBA, like what is Shopify? Why is it different from other stuff, right? Just you have to logically comprehend, and this is kind of where you were talking about earlier with the pie chart, like that just little bit of focusing on the logic. Why is this different? Maybe our colognes are all natural. They don't have any harsh chemicals in them like most other people's do. And all their stuff has aluminum, which causes you to stink more over time and like kind of just working backwards. So this is, that's how this is different. So that's the comprehension stage. The next one, letter D, is the determination stage. So this is where people essentially determine whether they want to like keep moving with things, keep moving in the path of the sale or not, right? Once people understand things, they will very likely self sort themselves into where they need to be. If they understand that, most colognes have this shit stuff in it, and these ones are much better for you. If they care about this being much better for them, they're going to keep going in that direction. But if they don't care at all, then like, I don't want to have a sales conversation with them. It doesn't matter. So then they go in the other direction of, okay, so they're not a qualified person for what we're doing. Maybe we need to change marketing to a way that they would be, other things like that.
That's
Uh,
interesting I think I just want to pause you real quick. That is interesting that you have that approach because a lot of times a more junior salesperson might try to, how do we get them back? It's like they're not going to be a good fit. They're not going to be happy. So let them
yeah,
go.
exactly. Exactly. Now, once they are, this is basically where, if you've heard of the term, whether, customers are leaning in or leaning out, this is where they're now starting to lean in. And so then the letter E starts the emotion stage. So this is where we start talking about the emotional significance or um, things along those lines of what it would be like. Again, talking about the feeling of the wish fulfilled. They get to the place where they're able to solve this problem in the business. They're getting this place where their girlfriend actually comes around each night instead of like
Yeah.
staying away because they don't want the cologne, right?
One of my
Uh,
one of the guys I work with, he would say, a year from now, when we're having a steak at Capitol Grill, what are we
mhm,
celebrating? What is it that we're celebrating?
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. So you got the emotions. F is in the fortification stage. This is where you're just fortifying their decision. This is usually where they're getting into onboarding. This is where you're solidifying their decision to move forward with things. And then G is the last one. It's the graduation stage. It's where they graduate from talking about the decision and making the decision to actually doing it and actually getting the results that they're wanting to in their life.
That's fantastic, man. I love that system. That was a lot of red meat right there.
It's a lot of
Speaking of
stuff, but
steaks.
you just remember ABCDEFG. Super duper simple.
That's great, man. Well, Christian, it's been a great talking with you today. Where can people follow you and learn more about your system and what it is that you're offering?
Well, if you would be willing, I think there could be something where we could put something down in the description down below this video or audio, wherever people are kind of
Sure.
consuming this, and we can put something there where I'll just give some of the stuff away for free that maybe I don't usually, uh, just because I think I have a certain affinity for business owners and marketers, and they have it tough. And I've really enjoyed something about your background, man. It just looks so cool. Uh, so I think that's what's making me do this. But
I
I'll
thought
put
F
some
was
things in
for
there.
flattery.
I'll
Yeah.
put some things in
Yeah.
there that maybe I wouldn't usually give out, but they'll probably give a lot more clarity onto various things. So we'll put some free stuff in there. But basically, I just run the Sales Dojo. So if you're looking to level up your sales skills, or somebody who is, whether it be yourself or your own sales team, we've probably got something there for you to be able to make more money and live a better life.
Well, that sounds really cool, Christian. Thanks. Thanks for offering that to everybody. Is there a LinkedIn profile, a website?
Yeah, if you want to go to www.thesalesdojo.co, um, that's the actual like base website for everything. And then if you do a /LOR for Law of Relevancy, then that'll be the specific place with the free stuff on it. So if you just go to the base website, like you'll get access to the community and different things. But if you want the free stuff and the good stuff, then go to www.thesalesdojo.co/LOR.
That's awesome, Christian. Well, thanks again for joining us. We will definitely check that out and find that there. And you can find this podcast anywhere where podcasts are found, across all of the social media feeds of Bake More Pies and the Law of Relevancy. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you next time.